G'day. Let's have some fun thinking about and playing with the fourth dimension. Why not? To build some intuition for that, let's actually go down a couple of dimensions. So a three-dimensional world, a two-dimensional world, play there, and then we'll go up to the fourth-dimensional world as well. Okay, so we are three-dimensional beings. We live in a three-dimensional existence, and we have a notion of moving forward and backwards. We have a notion of moving left and right, and going up and down. Three basic directions of motions. We live in a three-dimensional universe. But imagine a creature in a two-dimensional world living on a flat plane, like there's a very flat insect here, a little flat ant. It can move forward and backwards. That makes sense to the ant. It can move left and right. That makes sense to the ant. But this ant has absolutely no notion of the words up and down and what they could mean. These are, in fact, nonsense words to the ant. If you say to the ant, look up, it has no idea what you're talking about. It lives in a two-dimensional world only. Okay. I'm going to say the same thing happens for a four-dimensional world. There's a notion of forward and backwards, like we know that in 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. There's a notion of left and right. We got that. There's a notion of up and down. The ant doesn't have that. We have that. Four-dimensional beings have that. And the four-dimensional beings have another dimension, was and thrum. Now, just like these words sound like pure nonsense to an ant, these words sound like pure nonsense to us. We have no idea what was is, no idea what thrum is. If someone said to us, look, was, no idea what we're talking about. It is nonsense. But there are the four dimensions of motion in four-dimensional world. To us, was and thrum are nonsense. Okay. Back down here. Let's go back to the two-dimensional ant. In fact, we are three-dimensional beings looking at this situation. And I'm going to put that ant in a predicament. This ant, I'm going to say, is surrounded by a loop of string sitting in its two-dimensional world. And that ant, what's it seeing? Seeing nothing but a barrier. No matter where it turns, there's a barrier of string, wherever it looks. You can't look up and down, it's just seeing, all in that two-dimensional plane. That's all it sees. It feels trapped. There's no way for that ant to escape. But as three-dimensional beings, we can help that ant out, and we'll do the following. I will take my three-dimensional hand, come into this two-dimensional world, and pluck a piece of string upwards. Upwards. That makes sense to us. Upwards is meaningless to the ant. No notion of upwards. No idea what's going on. Except the ant suddenly sees a hole appears in that barrier. Very strange. It'll be very mysterious to the ant. So the hole magically appears. Well, the ant says, well, I can move through that hole. So the ant crawls through that hole, toodles along, escapes, which is great. And when the ant is out, we can then bring that piece of string back from the upwards direction and take it downwards. So bring it down. Ant has no idea what's going on. It has no concept of up and down. But then it will suddenly see that hole close up again. Whoa. That would be deeply mysterious to the ant, but it makes sense to us as three-dimensional beings. So, what is the similar predicament for us? Try this. Here is a rubber ball. A rubber ball. Nice spherical ball made of lovely rubber. And inside this ball is a fabulous piece of candy. Here's my candy. So right now, that piece of candy is trapped inside the ball. I mean, I could destroy the rubber and get the candy out, but I don't want to destroy the rubber. However, there's a four-dimensional being looking at my three-dimensional predicament. Here's what my four-dimensional friend is going to do. She's going to bring her four-dimensional hand down to my three-dimensional universe, like I did for the ant, take a piece of this rubber and pluck it wasward. I have no idea what that means. That is crazy talk. But what would I see if a piece of rubber goes wasward? What suddenly magically appears to me is a hole in the rubber. And I say, whoa, that's strange. But now I'll take my three-dimensional hand in, grab that candy, I can get it out. Fabulous, there's my released candy. It's sitting over here now. Grand and good. My four-dimensional friend's been watching all this. Now as she sees I've got my candy out, she's going to bring that piece of rubber that was wasward and push it down thrum. I have no idea what that means, but to me it looks like that rubber seals up magically again. Whoa. Okay, there is a four-dimensional being interacting with me in my three-dimensional world and helping me out. That's kind of crazy. Now, a lot of people say that the fourth dimension is time. Okay, because it just seems like a sexy thing to say. It's time, it's time. So could I think of this experiment with time as well being the fourth dimension? And yes, I can actually. If I can move forward and backwards in time, then what I shall do is the following. If I want to get a piece of candy out, I'm going to take this section of rubber right here, right the piece right there, and I'm going to send it forward in time. Because I know rubber decays with time. So I send it so far forward, all the rubber's decayed, I've got a lovely hole there. Then reach in, get my candy, that's great, and then up, bring that piece of rubber back into time for the present day, and it looks like it seals up. So if you want to think of the fourth dimension as time, I guess I could make sense of it even in this scenario. A lot of fun. Okay, let me do another scenario here. Let's play this game again. Let's have another interaction with four-dimensional existence. But to do that, I'll go back to 2 dimensions first with our ant. So here's my ant in its 2-dimensional world. It's all looking good. There it is. But I'm going to do something strange. In this 2-dimensional world, I'm looking at the three-dimensional existence. I'm going to say, let's imagine there's a 3-dimensional bubble falling down, and it's going to go through that 2-dimensional world. So right now, this ant has no concept of there being a 3-dimensional bubble above it, because there's no concept of up. There's no way it can know there's up. Up is meaningless to it. But this bubble's going to fall down, down, down nonetheless. But it's going to keep coming down until it just touches the 2-dimensional universe of the ant. And so we have a little point there where it just touches the 2-dimensional world, and the ant suddenly sees a point. A little speck just magically appears. As this bubble keeps falling down, it's going to pass through this 2-dimensional universe. We'll get a little cross-section of rubber now. So there's my ball. Not very good picture. A little bit's now underneath the plane of this 2-dimensional world. And the ant's now seeing this sort of circular cross-section. I'm not quite sure what it would see, but it just sees this thing. This was a point that then expanded and became a bigger cross-section. In fact, as the ball keeps going through, that cross-section will expand, expand, expand. It becomes so big, it shall be the size of the equator of the ball. So the rest is underneath right now. There it is. The ant will suddenly see this big expanded thing that expanded from a point. And as this ball keeps falling downwards, that equator, that cross-section will now start shrinking. So I have a little cross-section here. There it is. And the rest of the ball is now passing through. It's going downwards, remember. And it's going to keep going down until it becomes just a point, just barely still touching the surface, like that. And then it'll keep going and disappear entirely. It'll be totally underneath, and the ant will not have any concept of where that ball was. So if a 3-dimensional bubble were to fall through this ant's 2-dimensional universe, what does it see? The ant sees a speck suddenly just magically appear. That speck expands and then contracts back to a speck and then disappears. All right. Warning. There is a 4-dimensional bubble wasward from us right now and is about to fall through our 3-dimensional universe. What do we see? Imagine a 4-dimensional bubble coming from the was direction. I have no idea what that means, but when it first intersects our 3-dimensional world, we'll see a speck somewhere in space. And that speck will actually start growing. It will grow like a sphere this time. So being a circle here, for us it'll be a sphere. It'll expand, becomes a very big sphere, and it'll start contracting again, and then as it falls through our 3-dimensional universe, it will be gone. It will be deeply mysterious, deeply strange, and weird. Totally, totally weird. All right. So I'm having fun trying to imagine how a 4-dimensional world might interact with our 3-dimensional world. But what is the 4th dimension? You know, people say it's time, but let me give the mathematician's answer to what the 4th dimension is. And you're not going to like it because it's actually not very satisfying. But, you know, I'll be honest. So in 2 dimensions, if you go back to school days, we like to draw things in a 2-dimensional plane, the XY plane. For example, I might draw a circle, of radius 1, let's say. There's a circle of radius 1. And you learn in school that the equation of a circle of radius 1 is x squared plus y squared equals 1. All right. You also draw 3-dimensional graphs sometimes in school, in which case I have to do something like this. My picture's going to get messy here. There's an x-axis, there's a y-axis, and a z-axis. And a sphere this time, centered about the origin, would look like this. It's not going to be a very good picture. I'll say the radius is 1, 1, 1. And you learn in school that the equation of a sphere in 3 dimensions is x squared plus y squared plus z squared equals 1. So then, what's the equation of a sphere in 4 dimensions? Well, I could write one down. I have no idea what it means, but it would be x squared plus y squared plus z squared plus w squared equals 1. What's the equation of a sphere in 5 dimensions? I know, x squared plus y squared plus z squared plus w squared plus a squared equals 1. I can keep going. I can do more and more dimensions and play with spheres there. In fact, it really is just playing. Doing mathematics on this equation is no different than doing mathematics on this equation. It's no different than doing mathematics on this equation. The math is all the same. So to a mathematician, all the 4th dimension means is that I must be playing with 4 variables in my equation. That's it. If I want to interpret W as time, feel free. If that's meaningful to physicists, go for it. If I want to interpret W as time and I know A is electric charge or something, I say, oh, I'm dealing with a 5-dimensional system in my physical reality. Not a problem. To mathematicians, a dimension is just the number of variables you're playing with in a particular equation. Which then makes me wonder, if there's 5-dimensional sphere, 4-dimensional sphere, 3-dimensional sphere, 2-dimensional sphere, also known as a circle, what's the graph of a 1-dimensional sphere? Can you see what the 1-dimensional circle looks like? It's kind of fun to think about. All right, okay, so there we are. So there's my little quick burst of playing in the fourth dimension. It's really fun to actually try to think of how does 4D interact with 3D in different scenarios, and maybe you can come up with some more interesting ones on your own. That'd be grand and fun. For example, knots do not exist in fourth dimension. Take a loop of string and try to make it into a knot. You can always pluck that piece of that string wasward, untangle what you got left, pluck that string thrum, and that knot will be unknotted. Knots do not exist in the fourth dimension. There's lots to play with here, lots to play with to think about. But in the end, it's just about playing with a number of variables in a particular equation. Kind of cool.